All right. Here we go. Today, the Whiskey Agency Heads and Tails Canada Glentauchers 12-year-old space-sized single malt Scotch whiskey. This distillery is owned by Pinot Ricard. This bottling is not, but this distillery is owned by Pinot Ricard. This particular bottle was distilled in 2009 and bottled in 2021, and bottled by the Whiskey Agency. So this is 54.2% alcohol, or 108.4 proof. It is non-chill filtered and of natural color. And it spent 12 years in a refill ex-sherry butt of the Oloroso variety. So it is not a fresh sherry butt. It is a used sherry butt. So it had sherry, then it had something else, and maybe multiples of something else. So it's not going to be a very active sherry butt. But it's been in a sherry butt for 12 years. And this distillery, the Glentauchers distillery, you will not find the Glentauchers distillery having their own bottles. You will not see them on the shelf listed Glentauchers 12, 15, 18, whatever. They do not release bottles of their own product. Glentauchers is primarily used for blended whiskey. So this distillery produces whiskey that's primarily used in Ballantines and the Teachers. So if you get some Teachers Highland Cream or Ballantine's Finest Whiskey, blended Scotch whiskey, this is where Glentauchers gets used. So we have a rare instance of tasting a single malt whiskey that does not otherwise have a bottling. And that's what makes independent bottles so cool sometimes, because you get some stuff that you can't get any other way. And of course, this is at 54.2% alcohol. It doesn't say specifically that this is at cask strength. So 54.2 may not be the barrel strength. It may have some amount of water added. I don't know. It doesn't actually either mention how many bottles there are. So usually with these, it's one barrel that gets bottled, and it doesn't actually mention how many bottles the outturn was. So like that, we can't really guess if this 54.2 is barrel strength or not based on how many bottles came out. We'll just assume that since it doesn't say cask strength, it's got some amount of water in it. But of course, 54.2 is a relatively high proof. Again, we're over 100 proof. It's over proof, if you will. All right, so sick pop. Here we go. And of course, luckily, 54.2 is a great proof for me. I love that proof range. That mid 50s is prime, in my opinion. All right, so here we go. This is again natural color, non-chill filtered, for 12 years in a refill sherry butt. So again, a lot of like those fresh sherry barrels or fresh sherry butts, you expect like a nice deeper color perhaps than this. So for 12 years in a sherry butt, it seems fairly light for natural color, and that's because again, it's a refill butt. It's not first fill. It could have been filled any number of times. We don't actually know. We can't confirm it's second fill even. But not much coloration here. So we're going to have a light sherry impact probably. It's not going to be heavily sherried. So we'll get more of that Glentauchers innate distillate characteristics, which will be probably the most interesting part of this experience, because of course you can get all kinds of sherry flavor across all kinds of distillates. We know what that tastes like, but we don't necessarily know exactly what Glentauchers tastes like. There's some particles floating around in this bottle. I can tell just by looking at it, so we can tell it's definitely non-chill filtered. It's got some of that long chain fatty acids going on there. We're just giving this enough time to chill out. Again, it's a relatively high proof. We just opened the bottle, so we're just like massaging it slightly. And we get some time to let the ethanols chill out a little bit. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, yeah, so it's very tame. It's very tame on the sherry characteristics. You almost maybe not guess that this was sherry butt by the initial nosing. It's not super raisins. There's like a light raisin character, but you're also getting some like bright orchard fruit. To me, a spice that, again, sometimes I get right off the rip of some of these, but it kind of goes away, is cocoa powder. And to me, it's like something to do with like a bit of the sherry characteristics with like maybe a little bit more of the lingering ethanol for some reason. That like alcohol vapors sometimes gives me like a cocoa powder note. I don't usually think too much of it or even always say it because I feel like I get it too often, and I think it's something to do with the alcohol. But this one is kind of a little bit more prominent. Oh, what's that? There's something a little different with this distillate. It's got a bit of a funkiness to it. It's still like light. So there's okay, so let's just try from the top here. So there's like a slight dried fruit raisin element that you might associate with sherry, but there's also like orchard fruit notes, which we've already kind of said. But in there's like a malty component, but it's kind of a little weird. It's a little farmy almost. Like, yeah, it's like almost a little bit like barnyard hay, not like a fresh horse dung or something like that. And like farmy sometimes goes in multiple directions, but it's kind of like the hay is like very old and been sitting around the barn. That kind of malty character. There's somewhat of a pear to it too. Like there's not so much sherry that it's overriding the natural fruity components of this. It's got a little bit of a weird funky malt to it. The intensity of the aroma is not as great as I would like, though. Really, for 54.2, I'm surprised at how much I'm like hunting a little bit. That being said, the tenacity for burn on the nose is non-existent. So like, I can get right in here and not get singed. Yeah, there's something a little like, it feels like there's something more to say about this weird malt note. Like I think barnyard hay is not a bad one way to say it, but there's something a little horseshit. Not horseshit. It's like unripe barley. I don't think that's right, but it's almost like the malt is both barnyard hay and like slightly green. There's something funky about it. Oh, I can't put my finger on it. I feel like it might come to me, but just know that like the malt component of this is a major component. And it's like slightly farmy malt, but also slightly like unripe. There's something weird about it anyway. It kind of the aroma kind of reminds me of green banana. Like if you ever like have a banana that's like really clearly not ripe and it's green, and you peel it and it like the like skin peels and stuff like that because it's not really ready to be peeled yet, and that has like that green banana kind of scent, that unripe banana scent, like a little bit of that kind of idea, but it's like associated with the malt component. But there's still like apples and pears. And some dried fruits to it, but it's kind of a little funky. It's kind of a little different. But that's what we like. We like that a little different, a little interesting. All right, so here we go. Glentauchers 12-year-old sherry butt cilantro. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh, I might have to go to Whiskey Base to see how other people describe this because I want to say like that green banana note is on the palate, if that makes any sense. It's kind of nice. It's kind of funky. It's kind of interesting. So right immediately, you kind of get this like green banana malt related note, like this unripe malt kind of note. But then there's some like fruitiness. You get actually a pretty reasonable like addition of this like dried fruit raisin somewhere in the mid palate. You get some spiciness at the back. And then you get into like this like dark spices and chocolate, almost tobacco. Tobacco is a good note. We're talking about the finish at this point. Like you get into like tobacco chocolate finish. Like the Oloroso sherry butt clearly had some good influence on the finish here, and it comes out really well. And I'm surprised really how well this slight bit of raisin is an accent rather than overpowering on the palate. Like a lot of these sherry barrel related, I think it's because it's first fill sherry, you get it in the mouth and it's like, it's just all sherry notes. And this didn't have that for me. It's like, it's got that funky, weird I'm assuming distillery character related green malt kind of note. You get some orchard fruits in there. You get some of that addition of the dried raisins with some like spices in there. That's kind of like really, really interesting. And then the like tobacco and chocolate, maybe like a little bit woody on the finish, kind of like comes in like late. It's almost like you're not expecting it. Like you swallow and then you get a bit of spices and you're like, okay, here we go. And then all of a sudden in comes this chocolate, in comes this tobacco. A little bit waxy. Like a saltiness too. Drink's very smooth for 54.2. But I'm in the groove with this proof, right? I don't feel like I get phased by this proof as much as maybe somebody else would. Yeah, almost like a salty, farmy malt. Oh, so it's all of a sudden it seems really salty, like salty graham cracker. No, not graham cracker. It's not sweet enough. Almost like saltines, salty crackers, but not graham crackers. That's too sweet. The sweetness is not here. It hasn't brung the sweetness yet. So on the finish, immediately you get hit with those spices. Maybe a little bit of barrel. Then like tobacco arrives and chocolate. But like unsweetened chocolate. Or you could go maybe like black coffee. I'm digging this. I'm really digging this. I think the only way this malt could have came out like this is in a refill sherry butt. Because it's got some good like punch from like the sherry components, but it's not overwhelming. It hasn't overwhelmed the whole whiskey. It's like got still a good amount of the distillate components in it. The one thing that's missing for me right now is the sweetness. And again, it's not bourbon barrel, so you're not going to get so many sweetness vanilla from that. And the sherry butt is fairly used, so maybe you're not going to quite get that rich toffee note, that underlying sweet sherry note. Maybe it's gonna just hit, you know, mostly in the like malty and fruity, dried fruit, chocolate, tobacco, coffee realm, and not have like that honey or that you might get from bourbon barrel, or that toffee you might get from a sherry, but I guess not. It's not hitting those. But that kind of makes it a little interesting, you know. We'll give it a minute, because if this develops a sweet dimension, that'd be really good. Because at this point, it's kind of like I've experienced kind of a cool whiskey, but it would be even cooler if it randomly developed a sweet note. That like sort of green banana note is still there a little bit though. Like it's not gone. It's kind of a little different. I'm not getting a sweet note though. Like we're not getting the honey or the toffee. Good impact of flavors. Proof is excellent. What about texture? Let's think about it for a minute. It's not like, you know, the kind of like rad oiliness that you expect from like a Craigellachie or anything like that, but it's cask strength, so there's a good mouthfeel to it. Not cask strength, it's higher proof. It's less diluted, I guess is the way we want to put it. Nothing, the texture is not like a thing to write home about, I guess. It's what we might expect for this proof. Not watery or anything, pretty good, but nothing super thick or oily. At least it's not hitting me like that right now. But yeah, the sweetness is not there though. I guess it's a pretty nice bottle though, overall. And again, I think like the more I've experienced refill bourbon barrel whiskeys, the more I'm kind of a fan of refill bourbon, right? Because it's kind of like lets more distillate in, doesn't like overwhelm the whiskey as much. But this refill sherry butt, I don't know, man. That's pretty nice. To have the sherry components be there and detectable, but not overwhelm the whiskey, makes them like additive instead of like overwriting of the other notes, which I think sherry has a tendency to just overwrite distillate, you know, and just give it all the raisin. It's kind of like weird that this developed such a salty note. It's coming across very salty right now. On the nose especially. I do like this though. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.